we got another Ring of Honor edition, and this time it's somebody who played football with Matt Ryan. Not sure if anybody heard, but last week, what was it? Arthur Blank decided he was going to be in his own Ring of Honor. So, cheers to Arthur and the Falcons organization. Great work. Anyways, have you ever seen that? It's that meme of Obama awarding himself,
Yes.
right? That's exactly what happened.
Yes.
Anyways, there's also a football game on Thursday night. We got Tampa Bay taking on Atlanta in Atlanta, and didn't think we'd be looking at Baker Mayfield as one of the best quarterbacks in the league so far in this season, man. And they're coming off an absolute ass kicking. They beat the shit out of Philly. It's kind of
Yeah.
fun to see. No, I don't have any ill will towards Philly, but it is fun watching the NFC East get beat up on. So
Yeah.
this should be a really fun game, man. I'm looking forward to it.
Short week, division rivalry game. Kickers are expensive, quarterbacks are cheap. Let's get into it. What is up, guys? Welcome to the Edge DFS. My name is Tyson Smith, joined by Ellie Hernandez. Ellie, Thursday night football in Atlanta. We got through the hurricane. We're good over here. Everybody's got power back. Atlanta got hit pretty hard too. So Thursday night, they're home favorites, -1.5. I'm just like, I know Atlanta has won some games. They've looked okay. I'm just not very inspired by Atlanta so far this year. It feels like they're still not utilizing their weapons correctly. I don't even think they didn't score a touchdown last week. I think Koo just had all their points, I believe. Oh yeah, they had two. I think they had two return touchdowns, or they had a special teams touchdown and then a defensive touchdown, and then Koo had the rest. But I'm just not inspired by them. I mean, Tampa Bay, they did have a disappointing game a few weeks ago, but they feel like they're on fire, man. Baker looks good. He's clutch. Everybody on the offense looks good. They have another running back option now. You've got Mike Evans, Godwin. We have some injuries to talk about on the wide receivers over there, but this feels like a Tampa Bay win. I don't know if I see this going over at 44. I mean, this feels like a 24-20 type game. So, Ellie, what are your thoughts on this, man? Like, it feels like to me this is clearly a Tampa Bay win. I'm just not loving Atlanta yet. I think Cousins still has a little, he needs a couple more games to kind of get in the groove.
Yeah. So first of all, I don't usually throw out picks. We don't usually get too crazy, but I don't mind that Tampa Bay at +105 on this, right? I do think that this is probably a game that Tampa Bay should win, and it's really all the things that you mentioned. And one of the things that makes Kirk Cousins a good quarterback is his sneaky ability to extend plays or make plays outside of the pocket. And I just don't know that we've seen that this year. I don't know if we've kind of he's easing into it, and he's had some weeks where he's looked good, right? But this is an interesting defense, man. Todd Bowles he's always ready to come out, and he tries to dictate what's happening in the game by stopping the opponent's running game, right? So I'm very curious to see how this one plays out, but I do think this is a Tampa Bay win. I think you're right. I think it's probably one that likely hits the under, and these are two teams that are just probably slower in pace, just in general. Tampa Bay, we know, can kick it up a notch just because of their offensive firepower, but they're still gonna kind of dink and dunk it up the field, right? They're gonna take time off the clock, run the ball, and really just milk it. But these are also teams that they kind of have their issues on third down, right? They tend to stall out. So again, it's just those are things that can just impact the total in general, especially the Falcons, man. You're right. They had two. If it wasn't for their two special teams and defensive touchdowns last week, like they would have gotten the shit kicked out of them.
Yeah, and Atlanta's pace is like pretty slow. Like, they're not getting a lot of plays per game. I think they're like second to last in the league in plays per game. I believe that was a stat. And it just feels like, third down, stalling out, 3 and out. I don't know. I'm not inspired by them, but I do think there are some pretty decent plays. Like obviously we're going to need to get to some Bijan, but at what I'm seeing now here, according to ownership projections, he's like by far the highest owned captain projected. I just don't see it happening. I think as we get closer to those, the Evans, the Baker, we'll start to see those guys rise up a bit in the captain spot as far as projected ownership goes. But as of right now, he looks like he's way up there, and he's probably like 80% owned across the board. I don't see that happening. If that's the case, I might consider a fade on Bijan. I see it dropping a little bit, so I'll probably maybe just be slightly under the field. I don't know yet. What's your take on him before we get to running backs?
I just he hasn't gotten involved to the extent that we'd like to see him, and I think I mentioned a little bit talking about Todd Bowles. Todd Bowles is going to come into this game and try and eliminate Bijan Robinson from this offense, and he's going to try and force Kirk Cousins to beat him in the pass game and try and extend plays with his feet. So it's just I am not high on him. And especially if the field's coming in high on him, I think it's kind of just an easy fade in my opinion. But if the field starts coming in low because of all of the things I just mentioned, or maybe they don't get the news that he is good to go, then I'll consider him because running backs are easy places to target if your quarterback's under duress, right? And that's what we're hoping Bijan Robinson is going to get if he gets shut down in the run game.
Yeah, and just first
sneak out and catch this.
Yes. No, sorry, bro. You cut out there for a second. But on first reaction, I just feel like his ownership's too high right now. But as I go through the show, I think I'm going to probably convince myself to play a little bit more of him. It's hard not to click his name. That's just the hard part. It might be a very quick night if you decide to go under on him and the captain, or just kind of be around the field or under in the flex, and he gets the first touchdown and he's got 4 carries, and it's going to be a very quick night for you. You just have to close the laptop. I don't know if I'm ready to do that. All right, let's get into the injuries here.
Yeah, just pain. It was pain everywhere.
All right, so we've got some news here. Biggest news was Bijan was kind of banged up Monday, Tuesday. He does not have a designation, so he's off the injury list with the hamstring, so we don't have to worry about that. But the Buccaneers is where we got to talk here. So, there's names here. There's important guys like Winfield. He's important. We've got the tackle with the concussion who's out. We got a defensive lineman who still hasn't played yet. But the biggest news here is McClellan and Trey Palmer. We saw Sterling Shepard get involved last week. I think he had over 50 snaps. He had a handful of targets. I think he ended up with 50 yards. The old vet from the Giants, man, he's $1,600. He's going to be on the field quite a bit. So that's something we got to talk about here. I think that's pretty important. Anything else jump out to you here? It seems like they're a little bit banged up, but it's hard to kind of judge these other guys on these short weeks.
Yeah, I'll save my wide receiver commentary until we get there. It's going to be pretty simple. Play Sterling Shepard. Some of these defensive injuries, they do open up opportunities for just for the Atlanta Falcons offense to get back on track. But again, I do think Bulls will have a game plan to kind of fill some of these holes. But outside of what you mentioned about wide receivers, nothing too crazy standing out, in my opinion.
So on the other side here, Ray McLeod was limited earlier in the week. He doesn't have a designation. He should be good to go. So that's a big deal. You got Troy Anderson, their linebacker, out. That hurts him a bit. But Ray McLeod, him being limited, it's not going to scare me away from him. I'm going to be back on the Ray McLeod train with his price. He should be in the 5K range. And what is he, 3,600 or something, 3,800? So to me, I'm going to go back to the well with Ray McLeod. I think those two guys, Shepard, McLeod, are guys we got to focus on for getting value. That allows us to go with a really expensive Mike Evans at captain. That allows us to go with Godwin. And we can fit Baker Mayfield in the flex with him. And we can still get guys like Bijan in there. Having that 1,600 or 3,800 or whatever feels like a pretty good option, especially Ray McLeod. Now, Shepard is kind of going to be hit or miss, but he's cheap enough, and he's going to be on the field enough that I'm going to be okay with playing a lot of him. But Ray's on the field a lot. I mean, they're running 3 wide receivers all the time. So he's got to be out there, and they utilize him in a lot of different ways. 4 or 5 receptions, 7, 8 targets maybe. That feels like the type of day for him. If he has a massive day, of course you're going to need him, but maybe you just need 12 fantasy points out of him at that price. And that's easily doable for him. All right, so let's look at a couple of other things here. So Bucs running backs in week 4, we're starting to see Bucky Irvin get a lot of run. Rachaad White, I mean, he doesn't have a touchdown this year. The Bucs last year were like last in rushing, I believe. So we're starting to see things turn a little bit more towards Bucky Irvin. Now, Rachaad White's getting some success out of the backfield catching balls. I still think Rachaad White's absolutely in play. But just watching Bucky Irvin, man, he's slippery. He's when he comes in the game, it feels like he's pretty exciting. And I think they want to give him the ball more. They're priced right around the same. Do you have any clarity? Like it feels like Irving's trending up, but of course the field is going to think that Rachaad White's going to be low owned and Rachaad White's going to get 2 touchdowns. It's hard to judge these running backs. It feels like they're always going to just default to Baker throwing the ball down the field, and dumping off to these guys. Yeah. I think they're going to potentially abandon the run at some point, but it's hard to know, man. I guess we'll get more into this when we get into running backs, but I figured that was worth mentioning. The red zone snaps as well. Rachaad White had 100% of Tampa Bay's red zone snaps through 3 weeks. In week 4, rookie Bucky Irvin handled all 5 of Tampa's red zone rushing attempts. So it's shifting in his direction. Players who have more inside the 5-yard line carries than Bijan Robinson, all these dudes, including Derek Carr, Khalil Herbert. That's going to be the hard part with Bijan. All right, I think we're good here. Let's talk a little bit about some of these. I'm just trying to get through my notes here. So this Britt guy who's filling in for their injured linebacker, he's not very good in coverage apparently. 54th out of 71 linebackers. His coverage grade is pretty low. Could that open up a little bit more Bijan? Could that open up some Kyle Pitts here in the middle of the field? Maybe. You got McCollum, who's rated first out of 97 cornerbacks, potentially going up against Drake London. That feels like a tough matchup for Drake London. We haven't really seen a ton of down the field stuff from London, or at least successful. What jumps out to you here, man? Anything else? You sent me this little chart here about offensive 3-and-out rate.
Yeah, I mean, that was just kind of impressive to see how successful Tampa Bay has been sustaining drives. See them at the very far right. Obviously, Washington is just offensively impressive this year. But
yeah,
Tampa Bay, I mean, they're keeping drives alive, right? They're able to sustain drives down the field and turn them into points, which really isn't anything that we haven't been able to notice right so far in the season. Baker's having a hell of a year. That whole team is.
Yeah. All right, let's get into this breakdown. Unless you got anything else to add, let's do it. Break it down. All right, so let's go over to SaberSim here. So Baker Mayfield, 9,600. I mentioned the quarterbacks are pretty cheap. You got Kirk Cousins, 8,600. I mean, damn. That's Ben DiNucci level pricing almost right there for a freaking quarterback. Kirk Cousins, like I said, he might not fully be back. He might need a couple more weeks until we see him absolutely light it up. But $8,600 for quarterback, man. What are we doing here? I feel like you got to get to a lot of these quarterbacks. And I think I like Baker Mayfield a lot more. I think you could potentially fade Kirk Cousins. You could realistically see Atlanta win this game and Kirk Cousins has 9 or 10 fantasy points. But I think if you're building game scripts around the Bucs winning and you're doing 4-2s or 5-1s, obviously you're going to have a lot of Baker Mayfield. And the question is, do we want to throw him at captain at that price?
Yeah, I think you can have a little bit of exposure to Baker at captain just because he has been doing a pretty decent job of spreading the ball out. And, we're going to get to the wide receiver portion, but one of our favorite parts of Tampa Bay games is trying to figure out who to play, Chris Godwin or Mike Evans. sometimes the easiest solution is just play the quarterback.
Both.
And
Play the
in this
quarterback.
case, I don't mind throwing Baker Mayfield at captain for that. Um, I also am not entirely closed off to playing some Kirk Cousins to captain. At his price, that's reasonable enough for me to get a little bit of exposure. If they stay competitive in this game, I mean, even in a losing game script, unless they're getting blown out, he's going to be the reason why they're hanging around or scoring points to hang in, right? I don't know that Atlanta is going to be running up the score because of their rushing prowess. As much as I think Bijan Robinson is capable of doing it, this probably isn't the defense he'll do it against. So I think Kirk Cousins, Baker, like you really need to be staples of most of your lineups, and you got to find other ways to get different. And frankly, like between the two value guys you've already discussed, just briefly talk about injuries, we can do kind of whatever we want on this slate. So I think you just need to kind of have guys that you're just going to be building around. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. I think it's going to be a tradition for me to just have a joke Michael Penix lineup every week until Kirk Cousins gets injured. Is it this week? Does Vita Vea, smash through the middle and knock Kirk Cousins out for the game, and you have a 0.5% owned Penix? I don't know. It's going to be a joke lineup, that's for sure. All right, let's move on to running backs. Let's start with Atlanta. Bijan, 9,800. Tyler Algier, 4,800. As of right now, Bijan's getting by far, the best projection. He's got pretty high ownership. When you do a bunch of sims, I've crunched out 5,000 lineups. I contest sim to the big contest. You're getting mostly Bijan at captain. You're getting mostly Bijan at flex. We're recording this on Wednesday night around 9 p.m. We haven't really gotten an update in a few hours from SaberSim. I feel like his projection is going to come down a little bit. I feel like his ownership might stay around the same. But it feels a little too early to crown Bijan as like the best play on the slate just because these sims are just massively jamming him in. What do we do here, man? We always got to be worried about a little bit of Algier vulture action, but Bijan with a little hammy injury, I think they're going to have to get him involved in the pass game. I do like him. I'm going to play him. I've already talked myself into it. But I don't think he's going to be one of my higher owned captains. I might just be under the field on him on captain and go heavy on the Bucks. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think the easiest way to explain my Bijan exposure is just going to be kind of how I rank him in the standings for Falcons players in general. Right? I think I'll have Kirk Cousins, then maybe Ray McLeod, then maybe even Young Koo, and then it might be Bijan, Drake London, and then Kyle Pitts or something, right? Some variation there. So, like, let me preface like my exposure, like me saying I'm probably going to end up fading him with that, right? So, if he's going to be 16% captain spot, 45% owned, or whatever it is, right? I'm gonna be under that. I think maybe 5 to 10% of the captain's fine, and 20-25% overall exposure. And if he has a good game, if he has a solid game, you can get there with that. But losing 70% of your lineups or 50% of your lineups because playing 50% of your lineups against a Todd Bowles defense, it's just not something that I want to do, right? He may get involved in the passing game, but he's still kind of relying on those receptions to get there because it's a reality. You can end up with 22 rushing attempts for like 53 yards. Right,
Yeah.
he needs to get there with 6-7 receptions, even if it's only like 25 yards there. Those receptions are huge. But
Yeah.
I don't want to spend too much time on there. I think another great play here though is Tyler Algier. I do think that he is going to steal some extra touches. I think in a short week, these teams that benefit from these running backs who can carry like really be kind of backup workhorse running backs. I think it really benefits these teams to utilize them, especially on these short weeks. Help take some of the load off of Kirk Cousins in the offense, 4,800. I think he's a guy you got to have in some of your lineups.
Yeah, I mean, he's projected to be 15% owned in the flex. That feels pretty low for a guy we know is going to get some work. Like probably 10 touches at least, maybe more. All right, let's move on to the other side here. So Rachaad White, $6,800. Bucky Irving, $6,400. I mean, play these guys together, play them separate. I'm going to have a decent amount of either of these guys, but I think I'm leaning a little bit more towards Bucky Irving. He is a little bit cheaper and a little bit lower owned, and I do think he's trending to kind of. They're going to give him an opportunity to take the reins in a game, and it could be this week. Maybe they want to see him with 15 plus touches and just see how it goes. It's kind of trending in that direction. 6,400, hell yeah, I'll do it. He's $1,000 more than the kicker for Atlanta, so I think it's worth it. How heavy are you going here? It seems like combined ownership, probably, what is that, 60% combined ownership. Are you going to be in that range? You're going to be over on Bucky potentially?
I'll probably be over on Bucky, and I may come pretty significantly under on Rashad White. Kind of just the same thesis. You got a short week. Rashad White, he may have gotten a little banged up a little on Sunday. Bucky Irving can absolutely steal a couple extra snaps here. It's a short week. He's the young rookie, right? His legs are fresh. So I definitely think that he's got an opportunity for increased run. And I don't know, they want to use him in the red zone. That matters to me. And especially if he's going to be lower owned at a lower price, I think that he just has a lot of upside. So I will have a decent amount of Bucky Irving. I'll be over the field. Rashad White, I'll probably be under the field, but maybe hedge with like a captain lineup in case he has 40 yards and 3 touchdowns. I gotta stop saying shit like that. Last time James Cook did get his 3.
It's true. Bucky Irving captain is going to be nice. Let's remember to build with that. That could be an interesting build. All right, let's move on to wide receivers here. Chris Godwin, 10K. Mike Evans, 10.2K. Sterling Shepard, $1,600. Going to be on the field a lot. He looked pretty decent last week. I mean, this guy was, I believe he was released last year, or maybe his contract was up from the Giants, but I didn't expect to ever hear from him again. He was on the Tampa Bay practice squad. They brought him up because they needed him, and he's taken advantage of his opportunity here. $1,600. I think he's the number one value guy on the slate, especially considering that Tampa Bay is going to throw the ball. We should see Sterling Shepard get at least, I would have to think at least 5 or 6 targets. And if he hauls in 5 catches for 50 yards, doesn't quite get you there in the end zone, but 10 fantasy points from 1,600, you'd take that all day. If I told you that right now, you just lock him in, wouldn't you?
Look, man, I might have like 70% of him unless something crazy happens. Like between him and Ray McLeod, like if something happens to one of those guys, like I might just find a new hobby after tomorrow night, right? Like they're excellent plays. I mean, to put it into perspective, this also kind of might be a knock on the Giants organization as a whole. Sterling Shepard was like the cornerstone of their organization outside of Saquon Barkley for like half a decade. And now he goes to a team with some professional wide receivers, and he has to make the practice squad to get on. And Sterling, if you're watching, I apologize, man. I do like you as a wide receiver, but Mike Evans and Godwin are pretty solid. Anyways, look, 1,600. We know what he's capable of. This is too good of an offense, I think, to really just not play him. Play him at 1,600, man. It's not hard analysis on this one.
Yeah, I mean, you got a guy like Cameron Johnson. I don't know much about him. He's $200. Play him too. Get 5% Cameron Johnson. Just mix him in. He's $200. If he gets 2 receptions and you crush the rest of your lineup, you could do okay. All right, let's move on to the other side. So Drake London's 8,800, Darnell Mooney 7,200, Ray McLeod 3,400. He's no longer questionable here. Drake London, to me, I want to like him, and I want him to be this, big body end zone target and pull in 10 touchdowns. I'm not ready to accept that yet. I don't think anybody is. For whatever reason, we thought Kirk Cousins would unlock him a little bit more. He hasn't quite gotten there. He hasn't looked terrible. But he's $8,800 on a slate where we probably can't get guys like Drake London unless we fade both quarterbacks, unless we fade Bijan Robinson. So I think he's kind of one of these guys you're going to have to kind of get to. But I'd rather play Darnell Mooney at 7,200. He's looked good. He's had plenty of opportunities. Ray McLeod, we know about him. We've talked about him already quite a bit. He's the second best value play on the slate. I think he has a much higher floor than Sterling Shepard. He's probably a safer play. So if you could fit him in as your last piece or whatever, I would prefer him over Sterling Shepard. But the price difference there is going to help us a lot. So what are we doing with these three guys here, man? Like, I feel like Drake London is not one of these guys I'm going to go out of my way to get to, but I'm going to have to get to some. But do you like Mooney as much as I do?
Yeah, I mean, he's been the only wide receiver on this team that's been running routes past like 10 yards past the line of scrimmage. I don't know why they're not doing anything with Drake London to utilize him in that capacity, but until they do, Darnell Mooney's the guy. He's the guy who's got the big play threat. He's the guy who's catching the touchdowns. He's what you need for DFS, and for whatever reason, he's still not priced like it. Drake London, you can play him, right, if you want to, if you think this is the night he finally gets involved. I just don't think this offense has found its identity yet. I don't think they know what they want to do yet. And I think a lot of that's just, again, tied back to Kirk Cousins and his questionable mobility, right? Some of what makes him great is his ability to extend plays. And I think we'll start seeing some of these other guys get more explosive. But until then, you've really got 3 to 5 seconds to let your play generate before he has to get rid of the ball, right? He's not going to survive back there. So if Darnell Mooney is up the field on a post route, right, he's going to be able to catch, he's going to be able to take it, right? So I think that's kind of the approach you need to take here. And that's also why I like Ray McLeod. He's just running these dumbass 3-yard dig routes, right? And just catching these dump offs. Those are the kind of the things that build confidence with your quarterback. And at 3,400, right, he should probably be closer to 5,400. I mean, him and he should be at least as much as Young Wei Koo.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, there's some clear mispricing on this slate, especially Ray McLeod, because we weren't waiting on any injury news.
Yeah.
So, like, it's surprising to me that he's not in that 5K range, so I'm going to take advantage of that. Let's go to tight end. Kyle Pitts. 5,600. Big old zero last week. Here's what I'm worried about. The second I say F that guy, I'm never playing him again. He's going to have a 4-touchdown game. Like, the talent is there. We're still running into the same Arthur Smith BS. Does he just suck? Is that the problem? Is it not the coaching? Like, is he just not a good tight end at this point? I don't know. I mean, we saw I think it was 2 weeks ago. He had a long catch. I think that was like his only reception, or maybe only like 2 receptions. I believe he had a touchdown like week 1. So 5,600. He's a cool captain option. We talked about the linebackers' lack of being able to cover dudes, and that seems like an opportunity to kind of play him again. But look at this. I mean, I don't know if this is accurate. Maybe people are completely done with him. But if he's coming in at 11% ownership in the flex, I'm gonna play so much of him, and just pray that by some miracle he finally has the game that we've been waiting for him to have for a while. Charlie Warner, $800. Sure, a lineup or two. What are we doing with Kyle Pitts, man? Like, please tell me just not to play him. Please don't let me play him.
You came to the wrong person. So whether it's a confirmation bias because I drafted him in one of my season longs, or just stupidity at this point, 5,600 is a little bit cheap, and I really wasn't expecting to be this low owned, or projected to be this low owned. I really thought him and Bijan would at least be a little bit closer. I think I'm close. I'm as close to done with Bijan as I am with Kyle Pitts. I know it sucks to say, but I think that has a lot to do with this offense. I don't want to keep harping on Kirk's ankle, but and they just don't know what they want to do. But at 5,600, man, fuck it, whatever, right? And if you're really concerned about it, play a couple lineups with him at captain that you're really, really comfortable with. You probably don't need to get too crazy because there's enough value that you can do something fun that you're not necessarily going to be duped. But I don't know, man. Play him. I'm going to be playing him. 11% is kind of crazy. Charlie Warner, he's fine. Dwellier probably won't be active.
He's got to be higher owned than that, though, dude. Like, as we get closer, if we get inactives and we get another sim and another ownership run and he's still around this 10, 11, 12, 13 range, I'm just going to lose my money playing him because that's just too low. It's just too low, man. Let's go to Tampa Bay. Kate Otten, 4K. Payne Durham. Why did I think his name was Peyton Durham? Huh. It's Payne Durham. All right, I learned something new today. $1,200. All right, what are we doing with Kate Otten, man? I feel like he's one of these guys that on a showdown slate you're bound to forget about, but he's 23% owned projected. So you're telling me that Kate Otten is double the ownership of Kyle Pitts? I mean, I get it, but also I don't get it. So what do we do with Kate Otten? His price is pretty nice for a guy that you could see score a touchdown in this game.
Yeah, I think his ownership just might be driven by the price of the kickers, maybe being 5K, 5,400. People want that 4K player. I don't mind him. I again think that there's better options. I'm going to have so much Sterling Shepard and so much Ray McLeod, but I'm going to have Kate Otten sprinkled in my player pool too. You gotta have a little bit of exposure, but this is going to be a weird slate, right? So when we're building, we normally try not to max salary out when we have tight salary on a showdown slate. This one, you might need to leave like 3K on the table to get a lineup that's not duplicated. Sterling Shepard is going to get steamed as we get closer to lock. And I expect Ray Cloud's ownership to kind of get boosted a lot as we get closer to lock too, right? So guys like Kate Otten might become a little bit more interesting just to make a lineup weird. I know that's a long way to say it, but he's fine. I'm not going to have a whole bunch, but he'll be in my player pool.
Yeah, because if you're hand building, dude, like, why wouldn't you go with Ray McLeod or Kate Otten and he's $600 cheaper? Like, it just doesn't make sense to do it, but obviously you need to have a portfolio of lineups that's pretty diverse. Throwing Kate Otten in, if he's coming in around 20% owned, whatever his projected ownership is, I'm going to try to just be with the field because I do think we've seen him go off. It wouldn't surprise me on a Thursday night if Kate Otten goes off. So I'm gonna make sure I cover myself for that. All right, kickers and defense. So, oops, I have tight ends in there too. Let me click that. All right, so Younghoe Koo, 5,400. Chase McLaughlin, 5K. That's crazy. I don't remember seeing two kickers at both over 5K like this that often. I mean, kickers are crushing this year, so I understand, but I think you can't just like say screw it, I'm fading them. Like, I'm not going to do that. I'm definitely not going to do that because we could get the first two drives of the game with two 50-yard field goals, and you're not feeling too good. Their projected ownership is around 14% each. I see Younghoe Koo, his ownership going up just because of what he's been able to do for this team. And the fact that this team is probably going to have to kick a couple field goals in this game. It just feels like it. It's dome. It's Thursday night. It feels like this could be one of these, kind of shit shows, lower scoring games. What are we doing with kickers? I know this is a little bit of a different situation than we would normally talk about with kickers because I do think that Koo is going to be pretty high owned.
Yeah, so first of all, I do want to give myself some kudos for maintaining my professionalism, despite having the coolest name that we've ever had on the show.
I know,
right?
It's true. It's true.
So that's the first thing. But you gotta play the kickers. At this point, I think you've lost all your money if you went out and faded the kickers on showdown slates. Until that trend changes, like, I think you just got to continue to play them. They are priced up a little bit, but they're still not priced up enough to make it too crazy to play them. That said, you probably still don't need both in your lineup. I think I won't do it. I think it still limits your upside too much. So one kicker at the most. both defenses I think are in play. We saw last week the Falcons can score twice. That said, was Troy Anderson, whatever the fuck his name is, he is their best defender. He had like 76 tackles. He's pretty much like Lofa Tupu in Madden. I don't know if anybody's going to get that reference, but like just insane amount of tackles. He had the pick six or whatever it was. So this might be a completely trash defense without him. So that is one caveat when it comes to that. Buccaneers, they're going to stop the run, but they'll still give up 17 points, I think. So I don't know, man. They're fine for 3,600. I still think I'd rather go down to Ray McLeod or even Sterling Shepard, though.
Yeah, I'll have some exposure to defenses. I don't think I'm doing any kicker or defense captain in this one. I think there will be a decent amount of lineups. By decent, I mean maybe 3 or 4% of Young Wei Koo in the captain. I'm just not going to go that route. I'm just going to stay away from that, but I will mix in these guys. Probably, me personally, just the way I want to build for this slate, I'm probably not going to have more than one of the kickers or defenses. That's just because just of that value that we have in all these kind of stud players that I want to jam in. All right, let's get to our crown their ass. We're crowning their ass on DraftKings here.
Now, if you want to crown them, then crown their ass.
It's our favorite captain option. Ellie, you're going Godwin. I'm going Evans. Why not, man? These guys are reliable. We know what to expect. The one thing that worries me about Mike Evans is he gets injured about 14 times per game. And if I got 40% Mike Evans at captain, I'm gonna be scared. But this is a guy that absolutely can catch 3 touchdowns in a game. Godwin is old reliable across the middle. Would you be surprised if he had 10 receptions for 100 yards and no touchdowns? It's kind of, that would not be surprising at all. So you got anything to add here, Ellie?
I also wouldn't be surprised if both these guys go for 2 for 12 because they injured their hamstring in the second quarter. I think you can sprinkle in some Baker Mayfield. I will have a few Bijan Robinson just in case he does go off. I don't want to lose my ass. I'm not going to have much in flex.
Yeah, as we've been talking about Bijan, like I look back at his box scores and he hasn't been bad. It's just we just expect so much. We expect Saquon Barkley out of him. We expect 40-point outputs, 30-point outputs, and he just hasn't really gotten there. But he hasn't been bad. And on a showdown slate, if Bijan Robinson puts up 18 fantasy points, the biggest question is, do you need to have him at captain? All right, so let's go to our Kimes player of, I don't even know what we're allowed to call this anymore. These are guys that we shouldn't play, but we're going to play. That we should have learned our lesson, but we haven't. Ellie, who's your guy that you shouldn't play, but you're going to play a lot of?
Sterling Shepard doesn't count, I guess. I think Bucky Irving, we can make a case for him. I'm going to have a lot more of him than I probably should, especially considering the lack of salary constraints that we have on this slate. I'm probably going to end up close to like double the field on Bucky, man. I'm not going to lie to you.
For me, it's Kyle Pitts. I mean, he's a perfect candidate for this. I know I shouldn't play him. I know the lottery's not going to hit tonight, but I can't not do it. Like, I just can't live with myself if I say, screw it, I'm fading this guy, and he finally goes off. It would just be perfect, and I'm not going to do that. All right, let's move on to our lineups. Let's build a couple lineups together here. Throw us a like, guys. Let's get to 50 likes. We appreciate you guys. We didn't get to a show for Monday. There was a 2-gamer. We had that hurricane coming through, so I didn't have power or internet. But our goal is to get to the Monday night game. I haven't even looked at that yet, Ellie. Whatever that game is, we're gonna do a show on it. So let's build some lineups. Let's try to build this cashy sort of single entry here. Who do you want to go with at captain for this? Who do you think? I mean, should we just build with Bijan since he's projected to be the highest owned captain? What do you think?
Yeah, that's what I was going to suggest.
All right, Bijan, we're trying to build, a high floor. We don't really care about game script necessarily. I don't know. I don't love building these cashy builds, but I'm trying to get better at it. What's our strategy for this one? We're not worried about game script. Do we want to fade Kirk Cousins in this lineup, or does his price? Do we just got to get him in for this lineup?
Yeah, man. I think honestly, I think we just try to start with Evans, Mayfield, and Cousins, and then just see what we can do from here.
All right, so here's what we're gonna have to do. We're gonna have to get Ray and Shepard probably.
Well,
but I
don't know if we want to do this for cash. But what if we pull out Ray? Can we get to one of the kickers?
You can get to McLaughlin, but not Youngway. So what do we got there? A 4-2. You got Robinson at captain. You got Cousins in the flex. You got Baker, Evans, kicker, and third wide receiver. That's not bad.
If going from Evans to Godwin only gives you 200, are we maxing out the salary?
We got $300. Here, let's try it.
So if we go to Godwin, then we can go to Youngway Koo, yeah?
Yep. We can. So you get Bijan, Godwin, Baker, Cousins, Koo, Shepard. I don't mind that at all. I mean, usually when we're trying to build this lineup and we're putting an expensive dude in captain, like it's a little bit difficult to build. That was not very difficult to build. It really wasn't. All right, so let's do some GPPs. Who do you want to start with? You want to go Evans first? Since he's the most expensive dude.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, Evans, captain. What's our game script here? Is this do we want to do a Godwin, Baker, Mayfield, like all in on the pass game?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do it.
Let's just see if we can. All right. So in this case, who's going to be our main Atlanta guy? Do we want to grab like a one-off dude like Mooney? Like, you want to do a 4-2 here?
Bro, I was going to say Mooney.
Yeah. So let's do. I mean, am I crazy to go Mooney McLeod? What does that get us? So. Kate Otten. It gets us Sterling Shepard with some money left on the table, $2,900.
I don't hate it. The only thing that I will say with this is that 3 wide receivers, you may want to consider Mayfield a captain.
Yeah, but you're right. And especially Baker scored a rushing touchdown last week. If he scores a rushing touchdown on this one and throws for 300 yards, yeah, that's definitely a captain option. So it's interesting. We have like, obviously we couldn't get Bijan. Let's try to get Bijan in here. You want to try that? See how impossible that is? So in this case, you got to go Shepard. Oh, look at this.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Evans captain, Godwin, Baker with Shepard, and then you got Bijan and McLeod run back. That's decent.
I told you we're going to be too comfortable playing McLeod and Shepard.
I know.
Shepard is not priced right, though. I mean, he saw so much work on Sunday, and he looked good.
Let's put Baker at captain real quick. Let's put Evans in flex, and let's see what that gets us. All right, we got Bijan here. So we're still going to need one of our guys. Which guy is that? You want to go Shepard here since we got Mayfield in the captain?
Yes.
Kate Otten. This is a 5-1. Dude.
Do it, man.
Or McLeod. Every freaking time. It's Shepard and Ray. That's, man, yeah. I need to make sure I don't get too much of that combination. But it just makes it really easy. All right, you want to go Godwin now?
Sure. I mean, we did it with Evans, so like we know it's all going to work.
So obviously, let's build one with Evans, but without Godwin, and see how that goes, or vice versa, like just one of them. So let's do Baker in the flex. What do you think? Do you want to do like a? Sorry, my mic's all jacked up. Do you want to do like a 2-4 or something? Like get Baker and Evans, throw Evans in the captain. Those guys go off, and then you have a bunch of scoring from the Falcons. Or what do you think the game script is here?
Let's do it. Let's do Kirk. Let's do Mooney. Let's do Ray Ray, and let's do Youngway.
All right.
Like, I mean,
Kirk, Mooney, Ray Ray.
what does that leave us? Just
We can go Pitts. We can go Kyle Pitts here,
I don't. It's not terrible. The only thing is with Mike Evans captain. I mean, luckily he's only going to be 11% owned. This might be like 6% of the lineups right here, right? If you put in Kyle Pitts, but I don't hate it, man. Just don't like maxing this that way.
Feels like we've got tons of options here. You want to do our boy Kyrie Irving at captain?
Yeah.
All right. So what
if we do Bucky, we do Baker, and maybe we kind of just go 2-4, similar to what we just did, and then maybe go heavier Atlanta.
Okay, so Cousins, Bijan.
Yeah.
London or Mooney? You want to go Mooney?
Yeah, let's do Mooney.
Algier.
I don't hate that, actually. This is a weird lineup, but I kind of like it.
Yeah. If you wanted to do... Yeah, that's pretty nice. Also, you could go up to Kyle Pitt, or not Kyle Pitts, but Drake London, and then get Ray Ray.
Yeah.
So you got Kyrie Irving, Baker Mayfield, you got Cousins, Bijan, Drake London, McLeod. Like, dude, you can do anything. It feels like you can do a lot on the slate, man.
Yeah, man.
What'd you learn, man? What'd you learn?
I learned I need to pay very close attention to how much Ray, McLeod, and Sterling Shepard I get in the same lineup.
Yeah. I don't think I'm going to make rules to do it or to avoid that, but I don't want 20% of my builds to have that combination, or 10% even. I want to try to spread it out because both of those guys massively going off is probably not going to happen. And if I have to choose, I'm probably going to choose Shepard because if his ownership stays low and he's priced that way, obviously in a vacuum, you're going to want to choose Ray McLeod because we know he's going to get more volume, but just the pricing and the ownership is going to be pretty nice. Ellie, what's your final score prediction in this one, man?
Man, you ask me this every episode, and I'm never prepared. So, look, I actually think this one's going to be some bullshit, like 23-17, Tampa Bay.
I'm going to say 23-20, Tampa Bay. It feels like it's going to be kind of a slower game, and every touchdown that's put on the board is going to be pretty important, and you're going to have that guy. All right, Ellie, anything else to add before we get out of here?
Hop in the Discord. We'll chop it up after we get inactives. Nothing too crazy from what we're seeing. But maybe Bijan sprains his ankle warming up.
Yeah, you're right.
That's fucked up.
What happened last time? Who was that got hurt?
Oh man, I don't even remember.
I've blocked some games out. That Sunday sweat that I had was ridiculous. That was like some of the worst luck I've ever had. But it's over. We're moving on. All right, we'll see you guys later.